You're listening to Intentionally Catholic, a podcast about living our Catholic faith with joy and intention.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'm Dan Hansen, and, it's kind of natural to think about our priests in terms of what they do, what they do for us. Are they friendly? Are they approachable? Do they give a good homily? Are they there for us when we need them? Basically, we think of them as people we count on. And that's natural. I think that's completely natural. But how often do we think about our priests and ask ourselves what we can do for them? Well, as always, I'm joined by Father Ron Hutchinson, and rather than just wonder what in the world we can do to help our priests, I figured I'd just ask. So, what do you think, Father? What are some practical things that all of us can do to support you guys and the work you do?
Well, I think the first one that I immediately think of is I really think that it's very important that people pray for their priest every single day, that they offer prayers for his courage to live the gospel, for his fortitude in preaching the gospel, and just for him in general. For if he's having a bad day potentially or having a good day, just that God would give him strength to continue. Okay, because when you think about it, everybody's always asking priests for prayers. I get asked to pray for people every single day. Could you pray for me, Father? So I'm taking these things to prayer when I'm going to prayer, and I'm praying for everybody else. And often what I start to find is I'm so busy praying for everybody else, I often forget to pray about the things that I need, and or somehow feel selfish to even think of my own needs. So and it doesn't mean I don't, but I think prayer is the first thing. Pray for your priest.
Is that something that you find yourself asking for? I mean, you're
It's
asking
funny,
for it now, but will you ask for it like other people will come up to you and ask for it?
On occasion, I will say, keep me in your prayers. I'll say something like that, but it's not many times you're just so wrapped up in what you're dealing with in the day and the people you're helping that you don't think about what you need that day. Okay. So yeah, I just think that would be a nice thing if people, just remembered their priest in prayer every day, like this, he's my spiritual father. I need to be praying for him so that he can live out the calling that he's been asked to live. So, by God.
All right.
So that's the first one. The second one, what's funny to me is priests often have touched people's lives, either by their preaching or, what they've done. We rarely hear those good things from people. Meaning, I rarely get notes that say, or even an email that said, man, your homily just was lit this weekend. Like it really got me thinking. It's affected me. This is how it's affected me, blah, blah, blah. Or thank you for what you did for my family during the loss of our father, or, that kind of thing. It's just interesting because as a priest, you start to feel like people just expect you to do it well, but you don't get told how well you do it at all. So, but I will tell you right now, people have no problem telling me when they're unhappy with me, and they share that really readily. So, so it can start to get to the point that all you're hearing is the negative, and you're not hearing the positive things. And like anybody else, we need strokes too. We need people to tell us that, like, hey, you're doing a good job, because otherwise you can start feeling like the majority, the silent majority, is not the ones you're hearing, and all you're hearing is the vocal minority, but they become the loudest.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do radio stuff outside of this for my real job, and I got a Saturday show. I've got other things that I do, and it's not exactly what you're saying, but that's what I get. If I say something that really torques somebody off, I will hear about that. But you don't hear very often when something's been good, and you basically feel like you're kind of in a box sometimes. I do, because I don't have a lot of feedback. And yes, you wonder, is this landing? Is this message landing? Is it working? I know what doesn't work sometimes, but I don't know what's hitting. And you start to wonder, is any of it effective? And I know that when I do get some feedback, it's not just good to hear, and I'm sure this has got to be the experience for you too. It's not just good to hear, that is really important, but it also helps you know what was working and know what
Hmm.
kind of messages really are getting through, or what kind of things that you really did matter, and you can dial into those things a little more. It's good, constructive criticism isn't always hearing negative things that you can fix. Hearing positive things helps us know we're on the right track and whatever.
Yeah,
And for what you do, I think that'd be huge to hear.
it's very interesting because um, when people even do give me compliments, like say a very common one is people coming out of church will say, "Hey, good homily, Father." I will often say, "Well, what was good about it?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to know exactly what was good about it, because we can easily just say things like that are just phrases we use and they don't mean anything. And for priests, when they hear that nice homily, Father, I've heard that, by the way, when I wasn't even the one that preached that day. If somebody coming out of mass and I happen to be standing there, great homily, Father. I'm thinking, I wasn't up there today. Or I was just sitting there today. You kind of, if you're going to say it, say why it was good. Tell me what was impactful, because then I'm not just hearing a pat phrase. I'm hearing reality for you. And that makes a difference. So,
That really does. And I know it's surprising because we visited a parish, I don't remember how long ago, early this spring. And the homily, it was Father Rob, who had
okay.
been here before, and then he moved to Allendale area. So we swung out there and he gave a homily on, I think it was like 10 or 13 things happening at Mass right now. And he's talking about literally some of the vestments or some of the actions, just what the priest does and what that means. And he kept apologizing kind of in the homily that, I know this is not normal. This is kind of boring maybe, and we got done and I went out and we met him as we're leaving. And I said, I thought that was brilliant. The symbolism, it's so exciting to me to hear, oh,
Hmm.
now I'm watching and oh yeah. And now I know why they're doing that. And as I'm telling him that, he's just staring at me waiting for the but, because he didn't expect that was real. And, I think he believed me in the end, but I think it was really good to hear that those things are, well received or interesting or whatever. Because I don't know. I know what it's like. I create content to send out. You're not creating content in the same manner that I am. Yours is more important. But you're making something. And when you
Hmm.
put something, there's a part of you in that piece. And it's good to know what worked. It's good to know what didn't in a nice way,
Hmm.
because we're all trying to do the best we can here, and
Yeah,
that helps everybody succeed. So that's really good. How do
exactly.
we do that without sounding
Exactly.
like we're sucking up now?
Oh, well, I think as long as you're being honest, it's not going to sound like you're sucking up.
All
At
right.
least that's my take on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, a third thing I would say is, it's always funny to me that people will, in the holidays, always talk about remembering their mailman and, their Amazon driver or whatever with a card or a small gift. Um, I'm not saying you have to give me a gift. A card might just be enough, But I think it's nice to be remembered at the holidays, because the one thing to remember about the holidays is, yes, I do have a family and I come from a family, but um, the family that I serve the most isn't my family. It's all the people of my parish, and it's nice again in the holidays to be appreciated. It's nice that someone remembers you and takes the time to do something small, even, because it says you matter to me. And if the postman matters and the Amazon driver matters, then gosh, I certainly hope your priest matters. So I think, that's a small thing, but it's, and when I say holidays, I even think it's, if you know when your priest's birthday is, you don't have to send a card, but tell him happy birthday on Facebook, or whatever. I think that there's ways that you can remember that he is an important part of my life, not just something I expect to be there, but someone I appreciate being there.
Do you
So,
notice other priests talk about that too? That they
oh
kind of
yeah,
feel,
yeah. If it happens, priests will talk about it. That they'll be like, that was so great. Man, I was overloaded with birthday greetings this year, or that kind of thing. I think it makes our lives because we don't have like an immediate family that's going to remember our special days, and I even put in that, if you don't remember my birthday, at least remember my anniversary of ordination, because all it takes is putting that on the calendar after you see it one time, and then you'll never forget it, so to speak. It was funny the other day. I had a guy on the 20, it was coming up to the 24th of September. So I think it was this past Sunday, to be quite honest with you. And he said, "Isn't your anniversary today or coming up here?" And I said, "Well, actually, you're about a month ahead of time, but I'll take the greetings today.
yeah,
And
yeah,
why don't you
yeah.
remember to do it on the 24th of September too?" So, but it was just, I thought to myself, well, at least he was close on the date, I mean, that means something. Yeah, that I was still felt very like honored, he took a moment to think about like, oh, that's a special date for Father Ron, and so yeah, I think those are important. Again, it's that sense that you're more than just some functionary in my life. You mean something to me,
And
and I
it's so
think that
simple for us to do, really.
it is, and I think that unfortunately, when we don't do it, it begins to be, you feel like you're just sort of being used, but you have no other connection, with people. So, yeah, and I mean, you have to remember that for me, my parish becomes a huge part of my life while I'm serving them. It's one of the reasons that I've always taken very seriously that when I move to a new community, I leave behind my former community. Doesn't mean I don't care about those people or that I don't still, in some sense, pray for them. But I move on to my new community, and that's who I serve now. That's the flock I now shepherd. So the other sheep have a new shepherd. They're in a different flock. This is my flock now, and um, that means a lot. That means something to me. I hope it means something to the people I'm serving.
Do you
And
hear from the people that left? Do they reach
Yeah,
out from time to
on
time?
occasion, people will often feel like you've abandoned them, like you don't seem to care anymore. I'm like, well, I care, but I have to care in a different way.
Really? You get that?
Yeah, I
Well, you wouldn't have
have.
said it if you didn't, so I
Yeah, I
shouldn't be
have.
surprised.
It's not often, but on occasion, you don't ever seem to come around anymore and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I don't live there anymore.
Mhm.
That's not where I work. That isn't my flock, that kind of thing. So it is obviously not going to be a place that I come to. The first year you often hear things like, well, why didn't you, we expected you were going to be at so-and-so's funeral. And you're just like, well, I can't go to everybody's funeral at my former place if I'm serving here now. I don't have that kind of time, and that to me would be stepping on the toes of the new pastor, that this is his flock now. He's serving this flock. Yes, I served you, and yes, in a sense, we were close when I was there, but that closeness changes when I'm not with that flock anymore. I'm with a new flock. So it sounds callous, I know, to a
No.
certain extent, but it really, I take that very seriously because you can't be hanging on to the past and be in the present.
Well, you can
You
only
know.
spread yourself so far too, You can't be spread so thin that you're all over the place trying to be everything to everybody. And like you said, that's stepping on this new priest's toes.
Mm-hmm.
You came here and was it Monsignor Stasker left? Or no,
Mm-hmm.
was there somebody in between?
No, no,
No, it was
that's
just
how.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, you've just got to have that break. You guys don't pick where you go and when
No.
you go. It just happens to you. So it's not an intentional leaving. It's just this is
And,
what it
and,
is.
and yeah, you're not doing it like, oh, I want to do this to hurt you all. I mean, there are term limits and there's reasons why we do that. And some of them are good and some of them aren't good. Like I think there are times when I feel we can move people too quickly. And, there is something to be said for longevity. I mean, the good old days right now, at least in the present time of pastors who are 20 years in a place. That's much rarer now, because
What is the
the
average now?
the average now would be probably closer to 6 to 12 for a pastor. Our term is 6 right now. Anything renewed after that is usually gift, because there's needs so unless there's some reason you need to stay someplace, if you've got a special project going or, you know, um, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, even the age of the priest begins to be a reason for exception because, as we get older, it gets harder to move and it gets harder to settle into a new place. And, as you're older, you sort of just like a place you feel comfortable, that you know them and they know you and it works, as long as it's still bringing life to the place, it's okay. It's when it quits bringing life, then you've got to ask, who am I serving here, me or the community?
So you talked about, that can be, there are exceptions, but largely 6 years or so. You talked about just now how people in the parish that you left kind of feel like, oh, some of them will feel like, wow, you're not here anymore. You're not doing all the things we kind of thought you would do. How does it feel for the priest? Like, think about, I guess I'm thinking about Father Saha right off the bat. He's right here at the Basilica. I don't know what his time frame is, but it's running down, I would assume. He's going to get a parish. Is that going to be, I know he's going to be excited to do that. Way back when this happened to you, how hard is that for you as a priest or for him as a priest or a priest in general?
I would say parochial vicars, associate pastors, whatever term you want to use. The appropriate term is parochial vicar. They know that they're coming into a place with a very short term. It's a place of learning. There's the potential that it could be a couple years or 3 years. They might get 2 places. They might get 1 place. There's no guarantees. But you come into it knowing it's a time of learning and it's a very short term existence. I think as a parochial vicar, you tend not to immerse yourself exactly the same way as you would as a pastor, because number one, you're still learning the ropes of being a priest often, as a parochial vicar, and you just don't set down the roots the same way when you're the pastor. This is your parish, I mean, he in a sense is working at my parish with me. So it's my vision and it's, how I see things need to happen. So there probably are things that he'd be like, oh, no, when I have my opportunity, it's going to be totally different. We're not doing that, and that's fine. That's fine. That's how it works.
So there's a level of excitement for...
So there's a huge amount of excitement. I tend to find with parochial vicars, there's a little bit of sadness, but there's far more excitement, and that overshadows the sadness. When you've been a pastor, 6 or more years at a place, and you've invested a huge amount of your energy, your time, you've gone through a lot with these people personally and with them in their personal lives and you in your personal life. And it's become someplace that it has latched itself into your heart in a particular way. That is one of the hardest things. I mean, we all do it and we've done it, and some guys are really good at it and some guys are just not good at it at all. They don't know how to grieve in a way that allows you to say, okay, this is a loss, but I need to move on. And you don't have a lot of time for moving on. That's the other problem is you literally leave one day and the next day you're at someplace else and you're starting to learn the ropes of this new place. And you're going to be in the weekend with your new community and you're not going to be with your old community. And, it happens very fast and it's very hard. And, I think all priests have a tendency to use phrases like, well, at my last parish, or at such and such parish, which everybody knows is your last parish. And you're always doing this comparison game in the beginning. And I've learned that it's best to try not to say that. It's best to try to say something to the effect of, well, I've heard that it could be done this way, that kind of thing, and so that you're not implying I'm not happy here,
No, right.
But it is very hard. It's
So
hard
what
because.
can we, like, let's say we're at a parish and the new priest comes in. It's not easy for us. We see the guy that we just got used to and
Hmm.
liked or whatever. Now, in some instances, maybe we're glad to see him heading out the door. Who knows? But let's say we got attached and now this new guy comes in. And what can we do that's not overstepping, that's not kind of,
Yeah.
we want to give you space to get adapted. What's acceptable?
I think the most important thing is just to be kind, say hello, you know, just keeping open, uh, I always believe that the Holy Spirit is in the plan somehow, because trust me, I've gone places that I had no intention to go to. It was not on my radar. And they've ended up being the place I needed to be at, and the place that I think that God wanted me to be. And so I'm a firm believer that even if there are people who aren't happy about you being there, there's a reason you're meant to be there. And I think so when we're moaning about, well, Father so and so is not like our old priest, and well, I think we've got to say, you know what? But he is the one that's meant to be here now, and he's going to bring something. So let's just be willing to let go of the past and enter the present and the future.
Well, I like what you just said. You talked about as the priest, you got to go and be open and say, the Holy Spirit brought me here for a reason. There's something.
Mm-hmm.
And we as the parishioners, rather than be frustrated, God's in charge and he knows what we need.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not what we want right now, but it is what we need. And he's not gonna throw us a curveball and just send us off the cliff into oblivion, with this new arrival. There's good
Mm-hmm.
to be had, and keeping
There's
that
going to be
focus.
something to be learned,
Yeah. So
so
got
yeah,
a little bit left. What other things are you thinking?
well, this is where probably I'm sort of at my wit's end now. I've kind of offered all the stuff that I was thinking about. I guess for me, the ultimate thing is, I'm hard enough on myself that it doesn't take much to kind of be something that wounds me, because I'm my worst enemy in challenging myself or seeing negative things, or so when somebody is coming at me, and it can be, I can often be wounded very badly by it, and yet I'm supposed to act like I'm okay with it,
Do priests get
so
a lot
so
of
I
that?
so I think the challenge of this is, when offering criticism, do it with love. Do it with love, because there's a lot of things that as priests we'd love to be critical of people about, and we don't often say a thing. Don't say a thing, because it's just it's not gonna come across well, or it's not, or people aren't, you don't want to hurt people. So that there's the question I think we have to ask, just like in marriage, is this the hill I want to die on? Is this the hill I want to die on?
Yeah.
And I think many times we start to make everything the hill we want to die on, and I don't buy that really is
Died on a
what
lot
we
of
want.
hills, Father
Yeah.
Ron. There's a lot of graves out there that I'm
Yeah.
supposed to
But
be in.
yeah, so I just think we have to be willing to take a step back and say, is this really important, or is this just me being me? So I know that I do that on a daily basis. There are things I'd love to like go off on that people have said or done in the
Hmm.
parish, and it's just like, you know what, I can't, it's not going to serve any purpose, so I'm just going to pray for you. So I think sometimes that's what we need to do to our priests, for our
Well,
priests as well.
I agree with that. I think that's great. I think, I guess I'm not sure what situations you're thinking of. I'm trying to imagine what kind of things would make me seek you out to let you know that you didn't succeed at something. But I guess the first thing I think is, man, like you said, in a marriage or whatever, and in a work situation, that's another one that I think about right off the bat. It's very easy to have the criticism. It's really easy to have that come to mind. the better days that I have are the days where I stop and think and ask myself, if I've got this right, have I interpreted this scenario correctly? Am I having a bad, before I take my criticism to somebody else? I don't always succeed at doing that. Sometimes I bring that and then think about it later. But for sure, in these instances, just, taking a little bit of time to step back, like you said, to approach you in love, that's going to have to be after I've had some time to calm down or whatever it is, and then come with the right attitude. And basically, I would think with an attitude of, just trying to get clarification. Are we talking about the same thing? Did I understand what you were talking about correctly?
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Often it's a decision that's been made. We, as the shepherd of the parish, I'm asked to make a lot of decisions in any given day. And some of them can be decisions people think are just completely wrong.
Like when you threatened with a capital T to take away donuts, coffee from us. There were people with pitchforks and torches ready to go.
All I said was, if you wanted to continue, you got to step up to the plate. That's all I said.
Sounded like a threat to me. I had my email all written, but I paused for a second.
Thank you.
And thought, maybe, should I be that person? And then I deleted the email and I didn't want to talk about it anymore.
Because you weren't ready to go out and be the coffee and donuts person, were you?
I cannot handle that. No, I get it. That all makes sense. I mean, I think the easiest thing right off the bat, like you said, right at the beginning, is to pray for you guys. That's super simple. Remembering the key events, birthdays, and the other anniversaries, times of loss and things like that. You guys are always the comforter, and we got to remember that you're human just like the rest of us, and you need that comfort. Jesus needed that comfort.
Exactly.
So you guys do too. All right. I think that's all we're going to talk about. That's all the time we've got. We got to wrap this one up. If you do want to reach out, if you've got questions, insight, anything you want to get to us, you can get those emails in. Just send them to comments@icatholic.show. For Intentionally Catholic, I'm Dan Hansen.
I'm Father Ron Hutchinson. God bless.
Thanks for listening to Intentionally Catholic. If you like what you heard, please consider sharing our show with a friend. If you have comments, questions, or topics you'd like to hear discussed, please email those to comments@icatholic.show. And be sure to tune in next time for another episode.